The first thing I noticed when I stepped through the front door was that my best friend looked terrified to see me. Not surprised. Not happy. Terrified. I had spent 11 months working overseas in Kuwait, counting down the days until I could finally return to my quiet little house in Ohio. I had imagined the moment 100 times, imagined dropping my suitcase, hugging my best friend Matthew, and sleeping in my own bed again. But when Matthew opened the door and saw me standing there 2 days earlier than expected, the color drained from his face. His eyes darted toward the staircase, and then he quietly said the words that made my heart stop, "Don't go upstairs." Before we uncover what was waiting above those stairs, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes people can change, and subscribe to the channel if you believe in kindness, hope, forgiveness, compassion, and second chances. Sometimes the person we think has betrayed us is carrying a burden we never imagined. My name is Nathan, and for almost 15 years, Matthew had been more than a friend. He was the person who stood beside me after my father died, the man who helped me repair my first broken-down car, and the one who stayed awake with me during the hardest nights of my life. When I accepted the overseas contract, Matthew promised to check on my house every few days. I trusted him completely. During those 11 months, our messages became shorter because of our schedules, but he always told me everything was fine. So when my company suddenly changed my return flight and sent me home early, I decided to surprise him. I never imagined that I would be the one getting the surprise. Matthew stepped aside and let me enter. The house smelled faintly of coffee, but something felt wrong. The living room looked almost untouched, yet there were unfamiliar cardboard boxes stacked against the wall. When I asked about them, Matthew gave me a nervous explanation about storing some things temporarily. Then he noticed my eyes moving toward the staircase and immediately stepped in front of it. That was when suspicion began replacing the joy of coming home. I wanted to push past him, but something in his expression stopped me. Matthew had always been confident, sometimes stubborn, but I had never seen fear in his eyes like that. Instead of forcing my way upstairs, I sat down and asked him to tell me the truth. For several seconds he said nothing. Then he lowered his head and admitted that someone had been staying in my house. My stomach tightened. He explained that about 6 months earlier, his younger sister, Rebecca, had lost her apartment after a sudden financial crisis. She had been raising her teenage son, Caleb, and was struggling to keep them safe and stable. Matthew had secretly let them stay upstairs because he believed I would refuse if he asked. At first, he planned for it to last only a few weeks. But weeks became months. I was hurt, not because Rebecca and Caleb needed help, but because Matthew had made the decision without me. He had used my home while I was thousands of miles away and had kept it secret. I felt betrayed. Yet before I could say anything, a soft sound came from upstairs. Matthew closed his eyes and whispered that there was something else. Rebecca had recently been offered a permanent job in another state, but she could not accept it because she had nowhere to leave Caleb during the transition. Matthew had been preparing to move them into a small apartment nearby, but he had fallen behind on the deposit. He had been working extra shifts and selling some of his own belongings to make it happen. He had kept the secret because he was ashamed that he couldn't solve everything himself. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs. Rebecca appeared with Caleb beside her, holding a small backpack. The moment they saw me, they froze. Caleb looked frightened, but Rebecca looked exhausted. She apologized before I could even speak. She told me she knew what Matthew had done was wrong and that they were already preparing to leave. Then she handed me a small envelope containing every dollar they had saved for the house. I looked at Matthew, then at the people standing on my staircase. Anger was still there, but it had changed. I realized that the real choice before me wasn't whether I had been wronged. I had. The choice was whether that wrong would be the end of a friendship, or the beginning of something better. I told Rebecca to keep the money. Then I told Matthew that I was disappointed he hadn't trusted me enough to ask for help. But I also told him that I understood why he had been afraid. Together, we spent the next 2 weeks finding Rebecca and Caleb a small apartment near her new workplace. I helped with the deposit, Matthew helped with the moving truck, and for the first time in months, Rebecca smiled without looking worried. The house became quiet again, but it no longer felt empty. Matthew and I repaired the trust between us slowly. We learned that forgiveness doesn't mean pretending someone never hurt you. Sometimes it means admitting the hurt, setting boundaries, and still choosing to believe there is good left in the person standing in front of you. Months later, I came home from work and found Matthew sitting on my porch with 2 coffees. He laughed and told me he had finally learned the most important lesson: never hide a problem from the person who would have helped you carry it. And I realized something too. Sometimes we come home expecting everything to be exactly as we left it. But life has a way of changing people while we're gone. The real blessing isn't returning to the same life. It's discovering that, even after mistakes, broken trust, and difficult seasons, people can still choose to become better. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe so these stories can continue reaching people who need a little hope. And before you go, leave a comment telling me this: would you have forgiven Matthew, or would the secret have ended your friendship? Sometimes the greatest kindness isn't opening a door for someone. Sometimes it's giving them another chance to walk through it honestly. And that day, when Matthew told me not to go upstairs, I thought he was hiding something that would destroy our friendship. Instead, he was unknowingly giving me the chance to discover how powerful forgiveness can be.